Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of the Empowered Hearts podcast. Today is such a special episode because we have our first guest,
Yes, we do.
Sophia. Sophia is a medicine woman, a business owner, a voice activator, a shaman, I will say.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I also didn't know I was your first guest. Wait,
Yeah.
this is so
Yeah.
excited. Oh, my heart.
We're
So
so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here. What the heck?
you really are a huge inspiration. When I first met you, I was like, your energy, I was like, okay, it's a lot, but it's so beautiful. Like you have such a special gift with your voice and being able to articulate the way you do and to be able to just go after life the way you do. And that's really what's gravitated me and Krystle to you.
Yeah, my first impression was like, she reminds me of Moana. And then she's like, I live in Hawaii. I'm like, of course you do. Yes. Yes. The ocean vibe. I love it.
That is the biggest compliment ever. Moana is like, I swear it's my past life. Like I am in full vibrational resonance with that entire movie. But I'm so excited to be here with you guys. It's really funny, just like right off the bat, growing up, energy was a lot and I used to get really triggered by it. And so I would like try to keep my energy down. And now I'm like, that's who I am. That's who I was born to be. Like a lot of energy that activates other people. So I love you guys. I'm so excited.
But it's
We love you.
a lot. Like when I received your energy for the first time, I'm like, it's a lot, but it's refreshing. Like I like people who show up unapologetically, you know.
That's me.
So you didn't always begin, this wasn't your journey forever being a medicine woman and, owning your voice and helping others activate their voice. Can you take us on your journey of like where did this start or maybe what came before that?
Oh yeah. If you were to look at me even 5 years ago, like if you would have asked me that this would be me and this would be my life, it sounds so cliche, but I literally would have been like, there's absolutely no way. Also, how do we feel about swearing on your podcast?
Giver.
Oh, yeah, we're good.
Okay,
Give her.
great. I just needed to like check because I needed, you know. Um, I mean, my journey started like when I was as young as I can remember. I just remember always trying to shapeshift who I was because I hold a lot of energy. Like, if you think I have a lot of energy now, when I was like an 8-year-old kid, I was like fucking bouncing off the walls. And like growing up, I was an athlete my entire life. And it started with like my swim coach saying, you need to shut the fuck up. Like you're too loud. And like, he would separate me from people and he would put me by myself in like a lane, 5 lanes down from everyone to just like put my head down and like do my training. And like that cycle just kept going and kept going of people telling me, you're too loud, you're too much, like be quiet. Like even my dad, bless him, he'd be like, you can't sing, like, shh, you're hurting my ears. Like these little ways in which I was like, okay. And so I kind of just like fully shut down. And I would basically just like chameleon myself to make other people like me. I was bullied literally my entire life for everything, my weight, for my hair, for not having kissed someone. And then I had my first kiss and I was bullied for that. And I was just like, anything that I could be bullied for, I was bullied. I used to eat lunch in the bathroom by myself. So like I was very like,
My God, this makes me so
yeah, I reflect on my story and it's interesting. A lot of people talk about these very like big T traumas, and I don't really believe that I have a lot of big T traumas, quote unquote, but like my entire life felt like just these little T traumas, just like weaving into my nervous system and my auric field. And so, yeah, high school, really rough. Ate lunch by myself. My like AP lit teacher was like my best friend. And so I would sit with him. And I during this time, like I really started to develop an eating disorder. It actually started when I was like 10. I remember I was like 10 years old. And I would ask my mom if I could go with her to, I don't know if you guys know like Nutrisystem or like Weight Watchers or
Mhm. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I would beg my mom if I could go
Just in
with her.
Canada, not that far.
Okay. Oh, I don't know. I would like beg her to go with her because I wanted to be on it myself. And eventually she let me, which like she did the best with what she knew. And so I
Mhm.
remember like being on Nutrisystem when I was like 10 and like in high school, just eating disorder like full and through. And so I went to college. I moved to Florida at 17. I was very young for my grade. So I left at 17. I was also a D1 athlete, so I was a swimmer at the University of Miami. So I kind of immediately had friends, but my freshman year roommate was like the biggest bully in the entire world to me. And so I like basically dealt with that. Honestly, like I've never really said it, but like it was pretty much emotional abuse. That I
Mm.
never really acknowledged. And when I moved to Florida, both of my grandparents died within 3 months of each other. My best friend at the time blamed me for his drug addiction, and I literally had nothing. And so I basically withered away to like 90 pounds. Um,
Mm.
I should have been in the hospital. Like, I don't know how I wasn't in the hospital. And eventually, like, one of my coaches caught on and was like, you're gonna like do weight more. Like, you need to, like, we can't have you being like this, whatever. My health started to decline. I was just like not well, but forcing myself through it. And eventually I was like, I can't do this anymore. I quit swimming. I moved to Australia. And when I moved to Australia, it's like my eating disorder swapped from basically anorexia to binge eating disorder. And so I would start also like big trigger warning on this whole episode for anyone that deals with eating disorders or
Put one up.
depression or
Yeah.
anything. Big fat trigger warning. And yeah, so that kind of became like my identity. That was how I dealt with everything. I started drinking a lot and doing drugs and like a lot of cocaine, a lot of weed, and like I was just basically disassociating from my entire life.
Can I say-
I started,
can I just interrupt for a sec?
yeah, please.
Is it safe to say that your experience at school and like the bullying and the isolation and being like pushed out, that your eating disorder was your way of coping?
For sure, 1,000%. It was the only thing that gave me a dopamine rush. It was the only thing
Yeah.
that made me feel safe. So I feel like anyone with addiction, whether it's drugs or alcohol or sex or eating food, like, or TikTok or whatever it is, it's like that safety it brought me. It made me feel like the exhale.
Yeah, you had like your own space to allow yourself to do your own thing.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Control. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly what it was. It felt like growing up, I couldn't control anything outside of me.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing that I could control. And that's kind of why I started losing a lot of weight, because I was like, well, if people aren't going to like me, I can control what I look like. So let me get as skinny as I can be. And so that was what really started it. And then it was almost like everything snapped and I completely lost control, and like I couldn't gain control. So yeah, it was definitely my way. That was like my dissociation. That was my way of coping. And it went on honestly until like there were still pieces last year in 2023 that came back, and I was like, whoa. And so this was just like my entire life's identity. But I was in school, I moved to Australia, I came back, and then I got into a really abusive relationship.
Mm.
I was in that relationship for 3 years and I lost a lot of weight again because I wanted to look good and I wanted him to love me. And it was just this like cycle for my entire life,
Yeah.
on and off with all these different things. And then basically in 2021, right after COVID happened, I was actually supposed to move back to Australia, and then, the world shut down. And so I was stuck at home with my parents, and I had the breakdown of all breakdowns, and basically told my parents everything that was going on. And it took me like a year, and I left that relationship, and that triggered my spiritual awakening. Like that relationship was my catalyst to waking up. So
Yeah.
now I'm so grateful for it, because like I would not be where I am without it. or without anything in my life. And then, you know, it's kind of like you have your spiritual awakening, well, your first one, and then you just go down the rabbit hole, and I don't know, here I am, you know, I'm like, never would have thought this was my life's path at all.
Can you go into a little bit more detail about what your first spiritual awakening was? Like what happened?
Yeah. So I remember, so I was getting my master's at the time, and I was in this relationship, and I remember the first book that was ever like a spiritual development book was Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty. And I remember reading that. I actually remember exactly where I was at the beach, and I just like I could feel like my mind starting to open a little bit to there being something outside of me. I was also raised like Mexican Italian Catholic, so like I like denounced God basically because I was like, God would never choose this life for me. But anyway, so I remember reading this book, and I just remember my like consciousness expanding a little bit, even though I didn't recognize that that was what was happening. And I will never forget, it was one specific moment where me and my ex-boyfriend had gotten it. It was like a horrific fight. And I was sitting on the floor of my kitchen in like my super nice apartment in Miami, like sobbing hysterically. And I was like, there has to be something more than this. Like
Yep.
this can't be my life. And so that kind of was that moment, and I didn't know what that meant, but like it was like my guides were like, this is not this lifetime for you. And so that was kind of the moment where I was like, I have to leave. And so I left, and I was basically, I had nothing. I ditched all my friends, you know, it's like I was by myself. And so I started to like read personal development books, and people started popping up on my feed, and I just started to like lean into that. And that was really the catalyst for me.
Mm. That is exactly how my awakening happened too.
Of course.
Exactly the same. And the book that I read was The Greatest Secret from Rhonda Burns. It was like I picked it up and I was like, whoa. Like my mind's just like,
Yeah, I really believe that books find you exactly when you're supposed to read them. Like there's something about the energy of books that's like they just find you when you're ready to receive them. And yeah, so that was kind of like my first spiritual awakening. And then, you know, you just keep having them over and over and over again at new levels. But yeah, that's kind of like my story in essence in a nutshell, in a very like simplified way.
and
Well,
so now
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and so now, Sophia, has your journey became kind of like an unlearning?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my spiritual journey is, you know, I didn't realize that this was a piece for me until actually last year at my first ever ayahuasca ceremony. I connected with a sister, and I just knew she was soul family, and she had said, it's really hard for me to be human. And that brought a lot of light bulbs on. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, that has been my biggest struggle, is how do I be human? How do I be in this body? And so my journey has always been unraveling these conditionings and this contraction in my nervous system around literally being on this planet, and allowing, it's like weaving in like divine truth into that. But my whole entire journey has been unlearning. I don't, you know, it's funny, actually, I was just in Costa Rica, and in one of my journeys, like I saw this funnel, like this funnel above my crown, and it was like, your consciousness has never been cut off, but your body completely cut off your consciousness. And so your flow couldn't move through you. It was like all of this energy that couldn't actually anchor into my body because of all of the conditioning and the this and the that my body adopted as truth. And so that's fully been my journey of like, how do I be human? Down to like, Krystle, you inspired me to get a new water bottle because I'm like, I have to drink water. You know what I mean? Like that is for sure my journey now.
Beautiful.
So can you walk me through, like, I'm so curious, like, how did you get through this eating disorder to being like this powerful owning like you own everything about you now, and you're such
Yeah.
like a powerful force. Like, how did you go from like this feeling disempowered and not connected to your body to connected to your body? Like, I know you said the spiritual awakening, but is there anything else that went on?
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, still have moments where it's so hard for me to believe that I'm here. Like I remember so many times, like it makes me emotional. Like I would binge and I would be like, I'm gonna be stuck like this forever. Like I just didn't know how it was not supposed to happen, or how I wasn't supposed to always like restrict or count macros or this, that, and like all of these things. And I just like remember feeling so hopeless. Like I was like, I got to figure out a plan because this is going to be my life. Like I'm going to have to figure out a way to tell like my husband someday. And like, I just really didn't actually think that there was a way. And I feel like, I mean, my mom put me in therapy when I was in high school because they had like caught me binging. And so I went to the therapist and I was like, this is bullshit. Didn't serve me at all. I don't really believe in talk therapy. I think it's a key, it's a good first step, but like,
Yeah.
I wasn't getting anywhere. And so then I feel like it was, so actually, I got to this place where I was like, and it's funny, I'm in this place again, but in a different way, where I was like, I have to stop putting rules and restrictions on myself.
Yeah.
And I
Amen.
was like, Sophia, you have to stop. And so I actually gained a lot of weight, like quote unquote, naturally, because I stopped putting restrictions on myself. And that was really the first piece. And that was really hard for me. Like, talk about unraveling. Like, I was also a fitness coach. Like, my entire world was macros, this, ingredients, calories, and like, that was my world. And I was like, you have to stop. And so that was kind of the first piece of like really liberating myself from that. And then I started to do a lot of like, this is where like my root cause work started, and I started to understand like where it was coming from, and I started to understand like the depths. And this is really where I started working with medicine, and like the medicine would take me to these places of like, this is linked to your eating disorder, this is linked to your eating disorder. And I started to go back to these moments, like my birth, my relationship with my mom, like all of these pieces that just continued to feed this symptom. I started to see it as a symptom rather than like a problem. And so it was kind of like my work of what are the roots? Like, where are all of these roots? And so it was just kind of like a retraining of my brain, honestly. Like, I feel like I trained myself like a dog. Like, I would have the thought of like, go to the pantry. And I was like, okay, what do you actually need? Like, what do you actually need? Because it's not what you need. And so I started to find these other ways where I could give myself what I needed, whether it was a walk or calling a sister or a cry or water or whatever it looks like that I needed, that wasn't that external reach for something outside of myself. But honestly, like, it's hard to say like the exact steps, but I feel like those are the biggest pieces. That was like, I kind of was like, you have to change this or you're gonna die, to be honest. Like, I was like, something's gonna happen if you don't like pump the brakes. And so I kind of just like pulled the emergency brake and was like, you're done. And then yeah.
So many women can relate to so much programming around food, around body, around restriction, around literally everything. And it's so hard to like debunk it all and be like, what is truth? Right?
Yes.
Like, and so, but it's different for everyone.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because what works for one person will make them thrive and they'll feel absolutely incredible. And then another person will adopt that exact same thing and they feel it like death. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's really like peeling all that facade out of our mind and being like, what do I need?
Yes.
Like you said, and really leaning into being like, what kind of movement do I need? What kind of nutrition do I need? You know, like it looks different for everyone.
Yeah. And honestly, that's been like, to be very transparent, that's been like my very recent journey of like, so last year was like the hardest year of my life. Like one of the hardest years of my life. And sometimes I actually believe that being conscious makes the hard things harder because you're consciously aware of what's happening.
We literally just said this the other day.
Oh, yes.
Like, literally.
Dude,
Yes.
I'm like, it makes it so much harder because you know what's happening, or you know that you're doing the thing and you're like, why am I doing the thing? And it's just this whole other layer.
I said it might
Mhm.
be easier to just go, it would be so much. I'm jealous of the people
Yeah.
sometimes who are just like, you call them muggles, who are just like asleep,
Yeah.
living unconsciously and just do do do, like there's my lip gloss, or do do do, there's my running shoes, tie them up and go to the grocery store. Nope, it's just that's what we're doing today. Like that's kind of sounds exciting. I'm like, okay, let's shield, let's protect. We're going outside. Who the fuck is here? Like it becomes
Oh,
so dramatic. And then if you do
so
something
true.
against yourself, you're like by accident, you're like, I'm doing that thing, and now I'm aware of it. Now how do I fix it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the thing. And so last year I was like in an entire year of that. Like I had no fucking
Mhm.
money. Like you guys, I spent every last dollar that I had. Like I went to Costa Rica with $0 in my bank account last year. Like I didn't have $1, and I prayed on the plane and I was like, God, if something goes wrong, like please just don't let me miss anything because I will get stranded in the jungle and I'm screwed. I had no money. I was dating someone that I thought I was going to marry. Like I thought this was my guy, and he literally took my heart and just like incinerated it. And I
Mm.
went through the hardest year of my life. And I found myself like, it was so much for me to, I couldn't hold it. And so I went back to my binge eating, and I like found, and I was like, whoa. And I gained a lot of weight again. And I was like, yo. And then it was probably like, honestly, maybe March of this year where I was like, this is not right. I was like, I had this big realization again of like, literally fuck the rules. Cause I had done
Mhm.
vegan, carnivore, paleo, like everything that you could ever do to try to
Mhm.
get my body, quote unquote, to my highest self. And I was like, what if I just gave my body what she wanted? Like, what if I
Mhm.
just listened to her? And that is such, that goes against like the fitness industry makes like
Yeah.
probably 50, 100 mil a year. Not probably more than that. It's probably like billions a year. And it's like
Mhm.
telling people one way to do things. And that just doesn't work for us because we're
Mm-mm.
all so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
would
true.
say, like, personally, when I left my toxic job situation and I'd been like at the gym every day, 5 days a week, hot yoga, watching my calories, watching my diet. And when I left, I re-injured my back, so I couldn't work out. And I have lost 3 pounds just eating intuitively, not
Yeah.
going to the gym because I'm not stressed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
bought, and you
Yeah.
told me this always. Crystal's like, just let go of the stress and eat what you need. And I'm like, I don't know, but
Can't have bread because it'll make me fat, or I
now I
can't
eat
have sugar. It's
now
like
bread every
those
day.
yeah, those narratives start up, and you go to eat something, and even now, do you guys notice that it'll happen
Yeah.
in your mind and you have to be like, shut the hell up.
Yep.
This is what my body wants. This is what we're giving her. And you have to move through it.
Yep. Yeah. And it's also too, like, I've realized it's the frequency of which you eat something. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm eating a waffle cone with cookie dough ice cream, which is like godsend for me, and I'm eating it out of fear that it's going to make me fat, that frequency is going to be infused in my cells. But if I'm
Yep.
eating it in like the highest frequency of pleasure and joy,
Yeah.
that frequency is going to be infused. And I feel like that is like such a big revolution in this world of like, dude, it's not just about calories in, calories out. Sometimes I wish I was still in the fitness space because I feel like I would fucking kill it now
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like just like calling bullshit on literally the entire industry of like,
Yeah.
it's all wrong. It's all twisted, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
especially as women, like we're programmed so young to
Mm-hmm.
eat a salad or do this or don't eat that because I'm like, it's wild. It's really,
It's
really
too
wild.
much. It's too much.
So what was your introductory to plant medicine?
My first ceremony was, so one of my sisters in Miami had sat with psilocybin before. And I would say that I 100% believe that cannabis is a plant medicine. It's not one that I work with a lot. Granted, I fully overused it, and I like, it's like this. So fun fact, I don't know why this is coming through. If you're listening and you have a dependence on cannabis, oftentimes it's because you're not tapped into your feminine, because cannabis is a feminine spirit.
Mm.
And so people that tend to be very, like, they smoke all the time, like I smoked every day. I was so out of touch with my feminine that the spirit of cannabis came through and would like give me that feminine essence. So
Okay.
anyways,
I know now
I
need to,
love that.
so I have found before my spiritual awakening. Now this is the way I've put it, was I could not smoke weed or eat psilocybin ever because I would freak out. And I thought that was because there was a lot of traumas I hadn't looked at. So I could
Mhm.
drink. But now that I've gone through my spiritual awakening and I've cleaned up all the shit underneath, I've looked at all the roots. Now I can sit with plant medicine and it doesn't give me an adverse reaction. But now
Mhm.
I'm curious, does this have something to do with feminine and masculine energy?
Well, I think that in general, it's like your human knew that if you were to sit initially, it's like if you were to sit with psilocybin, then your human wouldn't be able to hold what it would show you.
No.
So that to me was like,
Mm.
so this is where your ego, we can't kill our ego because it serves us. So your ego was serving you because your ego was like, girl, if you work with psilocybin right now, it's going to show you all this and you're going to freak the fuck out and you're not going to believe it and it's going to close you off more. So I think that that's what it was.
Interesting.
Versus now you could sit with medicine and it might be like, oh, here's this. And you're like, okay, like I can hold that. Right. And so I feel like that's what it was. But yeah, so it's interesting. I used to smoke all the time and I'll smoke every once in a while now, but now when I smoke, it's like a full, like, it's wild. But my first experience with medicine was in like 2021, right before I ended my relationship. I sat with psilocybin and my entire life changed.
Mm.
My light language unlocked that moment. My hands were like channeling energy. I didn't know it at the time. I was just like, my hands are doing something. And I was like, okay. And I will never forget that moment. It was in my apartment with a sister of mine who had sat with psilocybin before, and it changed my life like completely. And so I started working with psilocybin pretty frequently and learned microdosing and things like that. And so that was kind of my medicine. And then I moved to Mexico and I started to work with Combo and Bufo, which are both amphibian medicines. They come from frogs.
Mm.
Yeah, so combo is not a hallucinogenic, but basically it comes from a frog. It's a secretion and it's basically a big purgative. So it's like a purifying medicine. And then Bufo is the strongest psychedelic on the planet. It's called 5-MeO-DMT. They call it the God molecule. So I was working with those in Mexico. And then last March, I sat with ayahuasca for the first time and I was like, this is my medicine. And so, yeah, here I am. I facilitate psilocybin. I will probably, like support in facilitation of ayahuasca ceremony someday. I would deeply love to do that. But yeah, I like personally serve and facilitate psilocybin now, but that was my first experience. And I remember I was like, there's something here. And it was insane. But I will say it's really interesting to witness back then. My like clairvoyant space it was more turned off. So it was more like this clairsentient experience versus now with all the work that I've done, my visionary space is like wide open. So it's interesting to witness how you unlock new levels with medicine as you clear and like literally excavate all the shit in you.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I could talk about medicine work all day. It's so profound. And also, I'll just like put a disclaimer just for everyone, like the medicine path is not for everyone. So like us having me sharing my experience and my work, like it's not for everyone in this lifetime. And I don't think that you should sit with medicine or go anything with medicine. Like I always say the medicine calls you. And when the medicine
Mm.
calls you, reach out to someone that's actually uh properly trained in serving
Mhm.
medicine and working with medicine. There's a lot of false light in the medicine space of like, I'm a shaman. Even like I'm not a shaman. Shamans are like like I look at people that they're like they grow up in the jungle and that's their soul's mission. I'm like, there are so many people that don't know what they're doing. Same in energy work, same in all of this, right? So
Yep. So
you're
true.
listening and you're called to medicine, like it's gonna call you, don't force it, and also find someone that you feel safe with to sit with. So I just wanted to also put that out there.
So I don't know, like I'm mildly versed in psilocybin and I've used it never in a healing way. It's always been to just enjoy, like I just enjoy it. So, but ayahuasca, like I have literally no idea what it's about.
Yeah, me too.
Can you share?
Yeah.
Yes, and it
I'm like on the
is.
edge of my seat. Tell us.
Like, do you
I love.
smoke it first of all?
No, you
Or
drink it. So
okay.
ayahuasca is a brew. So it is a mix of, I'm like sweating. She's in the room. Woo! Once you sit with her once, she's like with you forever. I'm like, okay, she's here. Ayahuasca is a brew. So it is made up of the ayahuasca vine and the chacruna leaf. And what's really interesting is in like Amazonian legend, basically the spirit told someone you need to go all the way north and find this vine and all the way south and find this leaf, and so they did, and that's how you create ayahuasca. So I just got chills. You put them in a basically like a big pot, the shamans, and then they sing and pray over it and brew it.
Mm,
Different brews taste different in different places. Some are very sweet, some are not sweet and taste horrific, but it's a brew. So
okay.
you drink it and then it is, yeah, that's how you like consume it. And then different lineages kind of have different traditions. Oftentimes you're in something that's called a maloka, which is basically like a big like basically like a big tent, and the shamans are in the middle and they will sing, and so what they sing are called icaros. So basically these people have worked with the medicine for years and done what is called dietas. So one day I will do a dieta where you go, it's either like a month, 3 months, a year, whatever, 5 years, and you literally eat the blandest food and just drink ayahuasca and build your relationship with her. And eventually she gives you what are called icaros. So it's kind of like energetic psychic surgery. So these shamans will sit in front of you and sing to you. So they're on the medicine, you're on the medicine, and the medicine shows them basically the frequencies of which they need to sing to heal different parts in your body. And
That's
there are like
fascinating.
no words to describe what it's like. Sometimes it's very blissful, and other times I've been like, please stop, this is horrible. But ayahuasca is what unlocked my voice. She unlocked my voice in ceremony, and I will never forget that moment. It was freaking insane, and she is like my greatest teacher. So she's the grandmother spirit, and she is
Mm,
like she's just so profound and has like done more for me. It's really true when they say like one night of ayahuasca is like 18 years of therapy. Like she will
oh,
take you to your knees and simultaneously bring you to God. And it is just something so special that I am just like so grateful that she found me. But it's interesting because she called me starting in like 2021, and over like I would just see, like ayahuasca or someone else drink ayahuasca or this or that and the other, and I was so scared, I was so terrified, and I was like,
mhm.
nope, I'm doing it. But I was also in a place where I wasn't ready to see my stuff. I was in a place where I didn't really trust the spirit realm and I didn't trust the 5D realm, and so it took me like 2.5 years before I ever even like said yes to it. But that's kind of like ayahuasca in a nutshell. I'm so happy to go as deep or as whatever as you want, but it's
I
so
kind
fun.
of want to try that.
I
Morgan, we
definitely,
should do it together.
well, we need somebody to facilitate. So it's gonna have
Yeah,
to
we gotta go
Sophia.
Yeah.
traveling. Or
Yeah.
Sophia.
So I don't think I'll be an ayahuasca in this lifetime, but I'm actually going to be at a retreat in October where with my mentor, and so she works with an ayahuasca, and so they were like, we want you to sing while you're there, and I was like, okay, like I'll sing. It won't be icaros, but It is, if with ayahuasca, that's the one, I mean, not the one, but that's a medicine where it's like you can't take it at home. Like you have to be
Mhm.
in a facility with a shaman, like a trusted shaman, because it's a different ball game. So like talk about, like, to put it in relation to energy healing, it's like you wouldn't just open someone up and
Mhm.
go in when they're like, I don't know, at the grocery store, right? Like in the same way, the shamans in the middle, they drink the medicine intentionally to protect the space. Like they are literally holding the energy of the maloka so that it is safe. And so I think that's a big misconception, is the reason why people have like attachments or things come through from medicine is because, specifically from like ayahuasca, it's because they're not with a shaman that's holding the energy. It's like the shaman is like the dragon that's like keeping everybody safe.
Mhm.
um so it's like
Mhm.
I usually go to Costa Rica, I'm gonna go to Peru, but I go to like very trusted facilities with shamans that literally they start drinking at like 10 years old. Like that's their life, is like,
Wow.
yeah, they start. That's why I'm like, I'm not a shaman and I won't be in this lifetime, because like these shamans, like they start drinking as a child. It's like their
Mm.
life's purpose, and they've woven like their entire life with this medicine. It is so special. And
How
sometimes
long?
very,
How long would you say the session is?
it's like 8 hours, six
Wow.
to eight. Yeah,
8 hours?
like 6 to 8 hours. So it depends on the ceremony, depends on the setting. But when I was in Costa Rica drinking, we would drink at like, I think we would drink at like 7:30, and then it takes around 45 minutes for the spirits to come in, for her spirit to come in, and then ceremony would end at like 3 in the morning. So it's a long process. You
Yeah.
also can drink twice. So if you drink and you're like, I need to go deeper, you can go up and drink again, like drink a second cup. But it's like a ceremony. You're in the field.
Wow.
Sometimes it feels
And
like
like,
2 seconds.
are you talking during the ceremony, or are you all just, is it like all just going on internally?
Yeah, so it's all going on internally. Different ceremonies have different ways of doing it. So in like the traditional Shipibo lineage, basically everyone is on a mat in a circle and you're all in your internal process. Like there's no talking, like you hear people purging and screaming and crying, and like everyone's in their process, but you're not like talking. Um, you're just kind of talking to Aya and you're talking to yourself and whatever. But there are different experiences where I wouldn't say you're talking, but it's more like open, or you're dancing or you're singing, and there's kind of these different energies woven in. But it's the only time you're ever really talking is like when I needed a facilitator's help, and she would like take me outside and like she would help me process and we would talk, and I just like needed a human. Um, yeah, it
Mm.
is it's a really beautiful experience. It's so special.
That
Oh,
sounds,
that's so incredible.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm excited for the day I get to do a dieta in the jungle. So just like work with her intimately for like, it'll probably be like a month, and there's some other plants too. So what's cool about these shamans is they don't just have the ayahuasca spirit, but they've dieted all of these other spirits. So like rose, bobinsana, damiana, kind of these regular quote unquote herbs that you hear of, tobacco, like they diet ayahuasca with these plants. So they have, it's like, you think of like your army of guides, like in
Mhm.
your cosmic realm, they have their army of plants and like these plant allies
Mhm.
that they help
It's
as they're
incredible.
like with you. It's really special.
That's fascinating.
It's crazy.
how do you use do you use psilocybin? Do you facilitate with your clients? Like, how have you woven this into your business now?
Yeah. So I now am in a space where I can facilitate. I've been working with my mentor for quite some time. And so I'm in a space where I can facilitate. It was really interesting. I had like a psychic dream of me facilitating ceremony, and my guides were like, you're meant to do this. And then
Mm.
I did my ancestry DNA, and I found out that I'm 10% indigenous, which I didn't know. And my tribes I'm from, we're all shamans. So I was like, okay, it's in my blood. So I started to work with my mentor, and she basically, I'm like her apprentice. I still am. And so what I do now is I facilitate ceremony. So I will like bring the medicine, like I take a little bit. So I'm in the frequency too with the spirits. They're called like the little ones, los niños. And then yeah, I guide you through a ceremony, through a journey. And then based on your journey, we kind of dive into different things, right? It's like sound healing and shamanic journeying, and I'm doing more training for womb work, and so I'm learning deeper into that area. But yeah, so I facilitate and hold you in ceremony, and then while we're in ceremony we kind of just let whatever guide. So that's kind of like woven into my business, and it's interesting in my business. It's like I have two parts. It's like I have medicine woman Sophia, and then I have like business mentor Sophia. So it's interesting navigating both of them. But in psilocybin ceremony is my biggest, I guess like my core is like women come to me that want to unlock their voice. That's like kind of the common theme of like, I feel trapped. And so we use the medicine to help open up the voice, which is really powerful.
Beautiful.
Fascinating. I love it.
How would
I'm coming to Hawaii for a ceremony.
I would love to.
I really want to as well.
We're gonna come together.
Come together. I would actually love that. That would actually be really, really beautiful. It would be really powerful.
I've actually never been to Hawaii either.
Me neither.
It's calling.
It's calling.
Yeah.
It's on my vision board. So it's happening. And I took a picture and showed Sophia, and she's like, that beach is like 10 minutes from my house.
Stop.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah. So
It's
that'll be
happening.
the first place that we go. It'll be the first place we go when you come.
Yeah. Yay.
I'm on board. I told you I want to sit with you. I never thought of it. Like it just happens to work that I'll take it, and it's just like the codes just drop. Like it's just have this understanding, and it just, but I've never gone deeper than that. Like I've never looked at, I don't know where I need to heal, or I would say like maybe I got into like conversation about my lineage and about my dad and like the traumas there, and like I went down the rabbit hole of understanding him better, and it worked, but I didn't really remember, like I couldn't articulate it after. I was like, what like it was so, it's like channeling, like it's so fast. Your understanding that I was like, I'm not really sure what I worked out, but I worked something out.
Yeah, that's a very common thing in journeys. Like I'll like, especially when it comes to Aya, I feel like I don't remember half of it, but it's because it's like, this is what's so cool about the medicine is like, it literally is just like working in you, even when you're not conscious of it. And then, you know, it's like you're moving through the process. Or what's really cool, and this is what I always say, it's like ceremony begins after the ceremony ends. Like the moment the medicine is complete, that's when it begins. And that's when it's like, okay, now you're going to integrate this. But I will have moments where I remember something from a journey years ago, and I'm like, oh, and I get why I remember it. It's because it's almost like your brain brings it up because it's woven into whatever you're moving through in your life. So that's like a very
Makes me
common
want to
thing.
talk about hypnosis, about how what happens is our subconscious, we have our conscious and our subconscious and our unconscious, and then we have something called the critical factor. And what that makes me want to reflect on is like when your critical factor, which is like the filter of what our conscious brain thinks is, you know, okay, and what our subconscious brain thinks is okay. And so when it's coming up, it's like, okay, I'm meant to process this now, and your critical factor has come down and allowing it to come forward.
Yeah.
So I would
Well, that's why just in the healing journey in general, like I don't believe that we should, like, everyone's on their own journey, and it's exactly like what you said, like your brain and body will tell you when it's time to process something. Like I fully believe when something comes up in any aspect of your life, it's because it's actually now ready to be seen and processed and healed. And I feel like that gives a lot of, I feel like it's like a permission slip for people, because I think it's really easy to get like wrapped up in the healing loop and the healing spiral and always healing. And it's like our body's gonna let us know when it's time to look at this or to process this, you know, like we just get to live and be, and then we'll know when it's time.
Once you get started on it, it's like Morgan and I talked about this recently. It's almost like, it's not that you become addicted to it, but it's like something will surface and be like, okay, I gotta like get to the bottom of this.
Yes.
you know, and then sometimes we over analyze and overdo it.
Yeah, 1000%. I actually had this conversation with one of my clients the other day where I was like, dude, you're in the space now. Like, it's almost like once you know all of your shadows and you like are aware of all of the different pieces of you, then it's almost like you're good. Now it's just a game of like recognizing the part and you're like, we're not going there. Like, hi, I know that you're here. And it's almost like you know when to feel into it and you know when you're just like, we're good right now. And it's I always remind myself too, it's like I do all this healing work so that I can thrive, not so that I can just like keep doing more fucking healing work. You know, it's like
Mhm.
all of us are healing so that we can live lives that we know that we came here to live, not to like perpetually live in this fucking cycle of always needing to go into the death or always needing to
Yeah.
heal something.
That is so, it's so true. Like this was like
Yeah.
our we had the other day.
Yeah.
I think we do forget that we've come on a healing journey to heal and to feel better. We're in this like addiction. It is like this addiction of
Yeah.
healing, and we can heal more. And I know this is common. I've read this before and I was like, what are people talking about? I get it now. I'm so self-aware. I'm so conscious. I'm this, I'm that. Oh, like
Mhm.
did I like when I went out on the weekend, it wasn't the best experience for other reasons. Normally I would have spiraled. I didn't this time. I'm like, just let it go. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yep. That's it right there.
Yeah.
I've been working with a group of women, and shadows will come up like around scarcity, and they'll say like, well, should I sit with this? I'm like, no, don't sit with it. You're aware of your limiting beliefs. The best thing that you can do is to not think about it and draw more attention to it. It's like at some point, like what Sophia said about shadows, is like, you know, it's there. And if you go down that rabbit hole, you're literally just keeping it active in your energy.
Yep. 1000%. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's to like make it like to loop it full circle, like it's another form of dissociation. Like
Mm-hmm.
continue down to always go into it. It's like, well, now you're dissociating yourself because you don't actually think that it can just be easy and you can just be, right? It's like it's another form of dissociation. And that's why like this I really think that so many people in this world like operate in that realm, whatever it is. Plant medicine can be dissociation too. Like meditation can be dissociation too. It's like I always want to be in the 5D. I went through that where I was like, I just want to be in the 5D world. I don't want to be here
Yeah.
on earth. So I would meditate for like hours a day just so that I wouldn't have to be here. And I thought it was like in my highest good. And I was like, you're literally dissociating. And so I feel like
So
that
true.
and like always going into it, it's like, do you really need to go into it? Or are you just like avoiding life being really good and easy?
And that's what we like. We like good and easy.
I
You're
definitely think
only available for it.
I think
Yes.
coming from like these, whether they're little t traumas, but like little t traumas, if you want to talk about like in the psychological world, is technically called CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which can be just as bad, if not worse, than PTSD. So little traumas over time, like it makes it hard for people like us when we come from this background of always needing to fix something, always needing to feel better, to then be in ease. Like you told me to get that book, and like that conversation we had about that maybe I'm like addicted to the trauma, but not like meaning to be. It's just like I linked being in trauma to equal happiness because that's just what I learned.
Yeah.
It's like we have to unlearn this programming of trauma and fixing and trauma and healing and healing. It's like, can it just be good? Can we just like
Well,
can we laugh?
it's like what you said, Morgan, about like living a lot of your life in pain. And now all of a sudden there's no pain. And it's like, what do I do with myself?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because pain was
And,
an indicator. It was like,
yeah.
hey, we're not going to do that. I'm
It's
trying
like
to
your
get,
anchor.
yeah, it was my anchor. Get away from the pain, go over here. Get away. Now the pain's gone. It's like, what am I moving from? No idea.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And that's
Yep.
that's the thing about unlearning that people don't really talk about too, is like once you unlearn, it's really uncomfortable. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, like yesterday, I was so plugged in and I was like, I have to rest. And it was funny. I was like, I should go to the beach because it's nice. I put a swimsuit on, I walked outside, it started raining. And God was like, stay in your fucking house on the couch and read. And that to me feels
Yeah.
so uncomfortable because I feel like I'm quote unquote doing nothing. And it's
Yes.
like I've unlearned this idea that I have to be on and working all the time and plugged in all the time. And the being the embodiment of what I've unlearned feels so uncomfortable. Like it's not easy for me to turn my phone off and just read on the couch when I know that it's sunny at the beach. But my body was like, no, 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 we're not going to do that. And so that's a piece too of like, for anyone listening, where you're like, okay, I'm unlearning, is not going to feel great because it goes against everything that you've been programmed to believe. And so you just have to keep leaning into it and leaning into it. And then eventually it just is in your being.
It's really challenging to go from like hyper masculine to hyper feminine. And it's like, it's unless you're like so depleted and you're like, okay, like I need to sleep for 3 days, you know, it's like, where can you find the balance in day to day? And so this brings me back to your comment about cannabis. It makes sense to me. That like clicks in my brain as to why people would want it, because it just takes them like right down into the chill state.
Into receiving mode.
Yes.
Yep.
And if you think about a lot of the people that have addictions to cannabis, it's the people that are always going and they can't go to sleep without it because it's that feminine energy that is exactly like what you said. It's like, but honestly, I feel like that's a lot of the big nature with women. So I really believe that we have first a heart up spiritual awakening where we like the upper chakra awakening where we're like, oh, there's more. And then we have a heart down awakening, which is our divine feminine sexual awakening. But in that awakening, it's like what I've experienced with my clients is we go hyper masculine to hyper fucking feminine. And then this isn't working either. And then the pendulum swings back to the middle where we're balanced again. We're able to integrate a healthy divine masculine because we've done the work to heal it while we're in the fullness of our feminine.
Absolutely.
Yep. I resonate with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Also, like I said, like pain was my anchor, and I was like, well, now what? So I just simply use the feeling of joy now as my anchor. Like, does it feel good? Okay, then that's for you. And trying not to let the whole narration of spirituality, everything I've learned and unlearned and this and that dictate.
Amen to that.
Like, I'm going to do this because I'm like, well, I shouldn't do this because I'm spiritual or this and that. Like, and Krystle's been really helpful. She's like, Morgan, enough. If you want to go out with your neighbors, just go. It's like, stop.
Dude. And that's the biggest thing that I think the spiritual community is now unraveling is this spiritual programming that we have to sit on a mountain and meditate and we can't see people and we can't do this. It's like, I said it to Krystle the other day, like we to earth to be fucking human. And the point of us waking up is not to be gurus on a mountain that just kick it and talk to our guides forever. We came here to bring the 5D into the 3D world. And if that looks like going to a rave, so long as you choose it consciously and with joy, that's the most aligned thing that you can do. It's not about like canceling out the human world to be in our 5D. And yes, there are things we get to shift as we get more sensitive, but also like, I will never not go to an EDM rave ever again. I have so much fun. And people will say there's too many people, blah, 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 blah. I don't buy into that because if my soul guides me there and it feels good, I'm going to do it. I still drink a margarita every once in a while. I had to unravel that because I was like, I'm never drinking again. And then I was like, that's out of fear. I can have a margarita and still be a fucking medicine woman.
Amen.
I'm going to write that down. Like, you know,
do it.
That's just another unraveling that we have to do once we wake up of like what it actually means to be spiritual. Because for me at its core, it's like, I move from love and I exist in love. It's not about your guys. It's not about this. It's about moving and living in love and joy. And that to me is the most conscious thing to do on this planet.
I love that. And it's the same with the pendulum swing. It's like you awaken and you go into your gifts and into the spiritual world. And then you're like, I need to, swing back over here. And then it's like, where's that middle ground?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
Well, Sophia, I know you have clients this afternoon or this morning.
Yes.
I just want to ask you guys one question. So what we ask at the end of our podcast is, what does it mean today to have an empowered heart? And basically that means like, what does it mean to you to feel empowered and in your heart space? Like, what does it mean to you today? To
Mhm.
however you receive that, there's no right or wrong answer.
I love this question. I feel like for me, like today, what it means is like when you have an empowered heart, you are in the full like embodiment of who you are. Like your heart is in resonance with like your soul, like who you actually are. And to live from that space is empowerment because we spend so much of our life trying to be like everybody else. And when we're able to really like anchor into our hearts who we are, like then we get to go out and be and live in the world the way that we are meant to experience it. So that's what I would say.
Beautiful.
What about you,
I
Chris?
love. Right now, what's I'm finding really empowering is like allowing my pendulum to sit more in the center and care more for my human and set really hard boundaries and like be selfish and take care of myself fully. And I feel so much better. And even like allowing myself to indulge in the human experience that I like shamed for so long, like have a glass of wine and, things like that. So I'm really right now to be empowered is really finding that middle ground.
I would say for me, it's continuing to follow joy, continuing to learn what that is for me, and just continuing trust. Because that's
Beautiful.
been a big one. And like, amen, it's beautiful.
I'm so happy for you guys. You're both doing so great.
So are you. We all are. We're honestly all killing it. Go us.
We are.
Thank you so much, guys. And we will see you next week.
Love
Bye.
you.
Love you.